Hi, and welcome to Fan Talk. I'm Simon.
I'm David.
And we're going to cover the news for the week.
Yeah, weekly news, yeah.
Well, let's just start off with the box office report from last weekend, September 6th through 8th. Obviously, now we're past the summer movie season. So
we're going into fall, so we're going to get a lot more of our horror flicks and our darker films, I think. So.
Yeah, and also a lot more of the festival movies, our house stuff and stuff going for the...
holidays is going to start rolling in. Yeah.
Right, and then we'll start getting some bigger movies coming out in October and November especially, and we'll go deeper dives on the box office reports at that time. For now, well, it's just kind of quieter. I think we're just going to look at the top 5 because there's really not much movement at all below the first one. Each movie comes out each week.
Yeah.
So there's no point going over the same. Like, for example, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is still at number 10 spot.
Yeah.
But you don't really need to cover that anymore, other than to say it's right on the heels of Inglourious Bastards for taking over that from his best of list.
Yeah.
So that makes it number 2 after Django. But it looks like I might get there too. Well, let's just start off with it.
It? Yes.
2.
It. Well, it's second part.
It. Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. There we go, yeah.
No colon even. They made $91 million opening weekend. Very solid. Not quite as strong as the first It, but also, top 5 for best horror movie openings ever. Mm-hmm. So, nothing to sneeze at.
No, and you caught up on this film. You watched them this last weekend, right?
Yeah, I finally did. Let me go through the numbers first, and I'll kind of give you some of my thoughts about the movie. This movie was higher than the first one, but also instead of kid actors from the first one, they now have like bigger name actors. Yeah. So probably that is the salary budget. But $91 million opening worldwide. It's already up to $198 million on about a $70 million budget. It's solid.
Yeah, it's doing good.
From my understanding, I never read the books. This is, unless they just make up brand new stuff, this is it for it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You never know Hollywood these days. They might make a franchise out of it.
Well, I mean, in the Stephen King books, anybody that reads a lot of Stephen King knows that other characters are touched upon in other books, and the creature from It, the not Pennywise the clown specifically, but the being itself, the deadlights, it's talked about in some other films, like the Dark Tower series. It's talked about a little bit, and some of the other things, but there's nothing that they're going to cross over and make another film out of. So
okay. Well, this had a 63% in Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah. And I kind of see why after having seen it. First of all, the casting was great. Jessica Chastain, McAvoy, Bill Hader.
Bill Hader's
even getting some good buzz on his acting, which is amazing for him. It was, points where he's doing drama was very solid, and he also has a comedic timing for those points in the movie too. One of the solid advantages of this, or not advantages, but one of the solid points of this movie was the casting. And they did a great job together. They had good casting on all around, but they had good chemistry together. That scene early on in the Chinese restaurant where they kind of all get together, the kids, or they're not kids anymore, but like 27 years later, they all get together and kind of reconvene in the small town. It's a solid scene. It's good acting, good just everything, just the set design, everything was it was a great scene. I really enjoyed it. Then the movie kind of gets underway. You get into the middle of the movie. They all go on their individual journeys for their totems, and
it slowed down a lot.
It did, yeah. I mean, one of the strengths of the movie is the chemistry between the characters. When they split them up to go do their individual things, it takes away that. And while they all did fine in their own little things, it just really lost that feeling. Yeah,
it wasn't as strong as it opened up. It's one of those films that definitely opens up strong, and then it's not bad. It just it definitely, the pace slows down.
It detracts from the
quality. It feels
a
little wishy-washy through the middle, and then it picks back up.
Yeah, I think they could have streamlined that part down a bit, and that could have fixed some of it. I mean, at a 2-hour, 45-minute runtime, it could have used a little cut here and there.
Yeah, and the whole thing is, I mean, it was a lot of new content, too, really, considering the original source material as far as, not the book, but the original movie. That's one of the reasons I think the original had a really good flow in the second half, is because some of that stuff was left out, and they kind of put in some different things, and it kind of flowed together a little bit more. It was more about Pennywise trying to stop them and them coming together and finding out what it was and why it was back.
You say that, but I was really concerned. The scene where the guy's looking for the boat in the sewer and Pennywise just hands it to him because that's one of the totems. I'm like, well, why would Pennywise do that unless he's got some ulterior motive? I didn't quite understand that part. It's like, well, he seemed like he's helping them out. That was a little plot. I don't know if a plot hole. If I just missed something, please feel free to comment and let me know. But I thought that was a little weird. One of the other criticisms I had, I think we think a little differently on this, is I thought the jump scenes in the movie, and yes, of course, it's a horror movie, but I felt like it was like a lot of rinse repeat. Like, oh, here's another jump scene. We're going to set it up and deliver the same way.
I see. I've read some people have said that a little bit about the movie. I've heard some people talking about it. I understand it, but again, it's the kind of horror movie it is. And even in the original film, right, there is the creepy aspects. You have the part where it's just creepy and like where Pennywise just confronts him right out, and that's scary enough. But there's a lot of that just, jump out and startle you scares. And that's the kind of movie it is. Yeah. And in today's, market, too, it's a little harder to scare people than it used to be.
True.
There's a lot more violence. There's a lot more stuff out there. So, I think that anytime that they make a movie like this, sometimes after a while it starts to feel like they're trying too hard. But you have to try hard and able to even scare an audience these days. So, I just kind of look at the genre in general, and that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. I just kind of like, yep, okay, cool. And if I actually get got, I'm usually impressed, because usually you kind of set yourself up for where the scares are at. And if something really makes me jump out my chair a little bit, I'm like, wow, good job.
Fair enough. Well, if you enjoyed the first one, go see it. You'll probably enjoy this one.
Yeah.
If you enjoy horror movies, probably go see the first one, then go see this one. But yeah, otherwise, I recommend it. It was actually an enjoyable movie. Those are really just smaller nitpicks than actual, Well,
and you agree with me, right? It's like this is definitely one of those films you could go and just watch it, but you definitely really want to watch the first one.
Yeah, definitely.
First,
make it a lot more enjoyable. Otherwise, you're going to spend half the movie going, okay, so how does this work?
Yeah. So definitely watch the first part first if you haven't. So
it'll make it a lot more enjoyable. Picking up on the box office from last week, and from there, Angels Fallen has fallen just a little bit from it, because that was to be expected.
Yeah.
But still number 2. It's on pace to make more than London Has Fallen. So, good job for a threequel to keep that pace up. And that made $5.9 million last weekend. It said chapter 2 at 91 million, and then everything else, number 2 picks up at almost 6 million. So the oxygen was completely sucked out by it.
Yeah.
But Good Boys in number 3, it has now made more than Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
And a lot of other movies this year that people expected more out of.
Yeah.
Great for the kind of comedy it is.
And you guys stop for just a second there, because I gotta say this real fast, because Dark Phoenix I kind of held off on, right? Which is unusual for me, because you guys know I like Marvel movies, whether it's made by who, it doesn't matter. I just enjoy going and watching them. But I really had heard so many negative things about this film. I was like, I'm just waiting for it to come out to rent. And since it is out now, I watched it, and I have to say, I really feel like it was on par with the rest of those films. It wasn't great by any stretch, but it wasn't awful.
It wasn't awful. The problems were, 1, Disney not promoting it.
Yeah.
2, you had the same people involved that killed the Dark Phoenix story with X-Men 3 involved with this one, and basically redid a lot of the same problems.
Yeah.
There's a lot of basic plot, storyline structure problems with it. But besides that, just as going and watching an enjoyable X-Men movie.
Yeah, it was fine.
It was fine.
And that's my big thing, because we'll continue on with the top 5, but I just wanted to say this. If you like X-Men movies, you're going to enjoy it. If you're like me and are holding off, I would recommend going and watching it, because it's a lot of fun to watch. The Dark Phoenix saga is not a story. I don't care who you are, even if the MCU decides to do this, right? You're not going to do the Dark Phoenix saga in one film.
Oh, yeah,
you
right.
cannot do that.
Yeah.
It is not possible to wrap that in. And I feel like everybody's going to be so scared of it now, nobody's ever going to touch it again, except for maybe animated,
Yeah.
But,
because
it is a long story, and to tell it in the correct manner, it takes time, and this was another one of those, where they just kind of tried to wrap it all into a couple hours, and it wasn't telling the Dark Phoenix saga, but it did tell a Dark Phoenix saga that was enjoyable. I had a good time watching it, and I have to say, as a final rollout for the characters of Xavier and Magneto, I love those actors playing those parts. I'm going to miss having them in those films. I think they both did a great job, and it was fun to see them playing that role. And spoiler at the end, where Magneto's like, you saved my life, let me save yours, and he's like, play chess with me, and it kind of sets up that friendship, that though they're enemies, they were friends first.
That could come full circle back to it can't, because of a different timeline, but it comes kind of full circle back to the first one, at least in tone, as that goes.
Exactly. And I thought it was a good way to wrap things up for the end of the.
Did you feel that Lawrence phoned it in on this one as Raven? Mystique?
Did I feel like what?
She phoned it in.
He's like, I'm done.
Yeah, that we'll take one. I'm out.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, like some of the casting for this whole series has been so, but I really enjoyed.
Here's another. I'm sorry.
No.
Here's another critique I.
Yeah.
At the end of Apocalypse,
yeah,
they hinted on her having the Phoenix powers as an internal power source.
Yeah.
And then this one, it's an alien or an extraterrestrial-based power source, and they never resolved.
No.
They just didn't do it.
No, the continuity, like, don't get me wrong, I get it. If you start breaking these films down, and again, there's other times for us to dive deep into movies and talk about stuff like, I'll sit here all day and be like, oh, I love Star Wars movies. But if you want me to start breaking down some of these films, especially some of these newer ones, people are going to be like, he likes Star Wars? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, because he sure bitches a lot. Gripes a lot. But in the same thing with this, it's a very fun movie. But yeah, you start looking at the inconsistencies and some of the casting calls and some of the storyline plot holes. It's like, oh my gosh.
Of course, looking at the X-Men series and franchise, it makes you appreciate the Marvel so much more.
Marvel exactly.
I'm not saying Marvel is free from inconsistencies, but it's a lot more solid.
Yeah, it's a lot more put together, which is why people can get upset with Feige all they want when it came to everything with the Netflix break and what will and won't be canon. In the end, though, the man has had a plan, and it's really hard when somebody else starts coming in and making up their own stuff to keep it all consistent.
Right.
And so it's easier just to shoot it all out and do your own thing. So, but anyways, let's go on back to the last movies on the list.
So we had It, Angels Fallen, Good Boys, Lion King still hanging in there, and Hobbs and Shaw at number 5.
All right.
Which I think domestically, Hobbs and Shaw is still in 8th place out of 9 for domestic grosses for Fast and the Furious. But worldwide, I think they're 3rd or 4th. So they're solid on worldwide grosses because these kind of movies make a ton of money nowadays internationally.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's what we've talked about many times. It's a spinoff as opposed to the main part of the series. That really concludes the box office as far as last weekend. It's not a whole lot of extra movement or anything other than It coming out.
But what I'd like to go ahead and talk about, when we're talking about the box office, we can go ahead and start talking about some of the streaming networks. And this last week, we saw some really good stuff come out, and you and me both actually sat down and binged The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. What'd you think?
I loved it. 10 episodes, an hour each, I think, if I remember right. And it set up, the world was already set up by Jim Henson's 1982 Dark Crystal, obviously, but considering the changes in technology and the CGI that is obviously in this show, it is a seamless add-on.
Yeah, you can't tell. But
after a few minutes, your mind just never thinks about the difference in technology.
No, well, even the original, that first open scene where it shows the castle, right? That castle originally, it was a model, and then there was a painting in the background and whatnot. And in this, it was CGI, right? But the way they worked with the puppets and a lot of the stuff, I was even doing some reading, like the puppets, like they actually went back over it and just ever so lightly added a little bit of CGI to the Gelfling's eyes to make them just a little bit more real and lifelike. But you don't even realize that. You just... To me, it was
the puppetry is amazing.
Yeah,
it's seamlessly integrated with the set design and the CGI,
and it's just gorgeous. It's one of those things that, I actually saw some makings of that are on there, and how the process of what they originally thought they were going to do is, for money's sake, they were just going to make an animated series.
Yeah, just CGI it to look like puppets. That makes sense.
Yeah, they were going to. Well, it was going to be just animated, and then they thought they could just do it all in CGI, and it showed some of that, and I was like, oh, that looks good. And then they came back and they're like, well, could you guys do puppets? And they're like, well, yeah, we can. It's going to be a lot more expensive.
We're Jim Henson Company.
And they're like, well, let's just do it. And they were super excited, and we got this final product, which was fantastic, and it goes seamlessly with the original. But one of the things I really enjoyed about it is, even if you're somebody these days that isn't used to watching this kind of film, and it almost feels like it's too much of a throwback, like I say, a newer audience that's like, are those puppets? It's just so beautiful to see. It's so cosmetically amazing when you're watching it on the screen. You're just looking from thing to thing, every little piece of life on the grounds.
It's such a refreshing change of medium to have not be CG, not animated, not lifelike, or real life. To be able to do this and do it well, it's so artistic to be able to do that. And it's very enjoyable to see something, and that's what makes it stand out. It's kind of like, you watch a claymation show. It's such a different style of animation that it takes your brain a second to work around, but then afterwards you love it. You don't even notice.
Yeah,
it was how they made it was just amazing.
Yeah, with this, there wasn't any time lapse for me at all. I mean, it was literally like watching art. Like, and I understand all film is art, but it was very artistically done. It was a lot of fun to watch.
And 10 episodes, they're able to greatly expand the world, all the different kingdoms of the Gelflings, and the different layers within those kingdoms. Individual characters you kind of fell in love with.
Yeah.
The Skeksis were exactly the same as before and also fleshed out more.
They were in a lot of ways more evil.
Yeah.
Because of you realize who they
see
are,
what they're doing to you see how they get from here to there.
Yeah.
I mean, they start off as kind of like, oh, we're lucked into this great situation to want all the power, and let's exterminate everything.
Yeah, and how they got that power, and how they really were tricksters from the beginning.
Yeah.
And at first, it seemed like it was going to be inconsistent with the original story, but then they
spoilers just in case.
Yeah, they patched that up at around the 8th episode, and it's like, oh, okay, now we're kind of back where we need to be. And but it also, I have to say this, I really liked it because when it's a prequel and you are a fan of the original movie, you start going down this really dark hole of how you're starting to like these characters, about how bad is this going to get.
I was going to jump into this. I want to hear what you say.
Yeah, and I was like, how bad is this going to get? Because you fall in love with these characters, but where it's going. And I thought it was a very well done, nice place to wrap it up, where you leave with a positive message, and you don't lose a lot of these characters you really care about. You know where things are going, though. It was a very well put together story, and it actually impressed me because at the beginning I was kind of like, I enjoyed it, and I said, but some of the story I was kind of having trouble with, and then they really tightened it up at the end, and I thought it was a good place to stop.
You know what reminds me, because I was thinking about this, like comparisons. One of your favorite movies in the last few years, like did the same thing, Rogue One.
Yeah.
Where obviously a prequel, you have to get. You know what the end result's going to be, and you have to get from here to there, and you realize that these people aren't going to do very well.
They're not going to pan out really well.
Yeah.
How have I never heard of this June Orso character? Oh, yeah, because, And
it's the similar kind of thing here. You kind of know it's going to get bad before it gets worse, but the thing is, this show does such a great job with the characters, making you care for them and their stories. You do care, but you don't care as much about, how is this going to play out, because I know you want to see their journey. You still want to
see their journey, and you don't necessarily want to see it happen either, because you care about the characters. It's one of the things, like, versus another story I really like. I'm a Halo fan, so whenever Halo Reach came out, it's a group of Spartans in that series, and at the very beginning, from the very first scene of the game, that all your heroes are going to die. And as you play through it, you start losing them, and it actually is an emotional thing because you really like the story of these characters, and it's kind of tough playing through the game if you're really into the story. So that is a little different than whenever you're watching a movie, and you're super close to these characters. If you had to watch all these characters die off, I mean, it could actually take more away from it. So I really like the way that they wrapped this up.
Just kind of let that implied.
Yeah, it's implied. You know how it pans out. So you didn't have to see it all.
Well, and also the voice cast was phenomenal. Taryn Eagleton as Rian was great. She's fairly unknown, but Donna Kimball as Agra. She did a fantastic job just catching all those just different little scoffs and emotions and everything else. Simon Pegg as Chamberlain, I really enjoyed. Mark Hamill as the scientist.
Yeah, Mark Hamill is the scientist.
And there's tons of others that were in there, like
and some of you just immediately noticed as soon as the scientist opened his mouth, I'm like, that's Mark Hamill, because I've heard so much of his voice work. And then on the other side of that, when Simon Pegg was doing Chamberlain, I mean, obviously he was not the same guy that did the voice.
I double checked to see if it was the original actor.
Right, me too. I looked back, I was like, he had to have been a kid back then. There's no way. And it was like, it was so seamless. You're like, wow. I mean, just the voice actors nailed it. They nailed it. So if you have not seen The Dark Crystal, watch this series on Netflix and then go watch The Dark Crystal, and it'll be really enjoyable. And honestly, even though it's a really old movie, it's going to really fit in well, and you won't feel like it's a really old film. You'll feel like you're getting the end of your story. Yeah. And if you are a Dark Crystal fan, go and watch these. You will not be disappointed.
Okay, our recommendation. Let's see. Should I cover some other news first, or you want to hear what's coming out next weekend?
Let's talk about what's coming out next weekend.
All right, we have 2 movies, and they seem to be kind of flip-flop on what expectations are.
Yeah.
We have Goldfinch, based upon a Pulitzer Prize-winning book of the same name. Very artsy, opened up at the festivals. Rotten Tomatoes is down to 27%.
Really?
Yep.
It's that low?
Yep, it's got some good cast in it. I mean, it did well at the festivals, and it's expected to. The budget is $45 million. It's projected to open at about 5 to 8. So it looks it looks really rough for it right now. We'll see if the award season can save it at all. But even the reviews coming out of it, I got the reviews from movie festivals where you get like the high end critics and the people that really enjoy the.
Did you just finger out?
Yes, I did.
You know how many people you just offended?
Sorry.
These types.
Yeah. You get those people aren't watching the show.
Yeah, I get what you mean though. The real artistic people that are looking for all the really artsy things that might
they
make
loved it, but then you
watch, but the story isn't.
Then you get the real reviewers coming in to watch it now, and it's not looking so great on even just the reviews. So I guess we'll see how that works. On the flip side is Hustlers with J-Lo in the house, Jenny from the Block.
Little Jenny from the Block.
We got Constance Wu, we got Julia Stiles, and Cardi B. Budget $20 million, Rotten Tomatoes 90%, which is I think great for a movie about 50-year-old strippers defrauding Wall Street types.
Yeah, which it's going to be a fun flick, and I gotta say, there's some actors in that that I'm looking forward to seeing them back in things. I haven't seen. Jennifer Lopez, I'm trying to think of the last thing that she was in.
That you would have seen?
Yeah, that I would have seen. And Julia Stiles. Julia Stiles, she was in lots of stuff, back in the day.
And then the Bourne stuff.
And then she did the Bourne Identity stuff, and I know she's done a couple other films. I really hope this is kind of something that is a big breakout role. We start seeing her in a lot more stuff, because I really enjoy her acting and a lot of stuff that she's been in. I'd like to see her in more, actually. So, but the movie does look like it's going to have some laughs.
Looks like a lot of fun,
and be a good movie.
Budget on that was $20 million, and it's projected to open up to $30 million. So, conversely, compared to the other movie coming out, it looks to be well positioned to do well.
Yeah.
It's been called by critics funny, empowering, sexy, even kind of scary, just because of how easily these people can just defraud and rip off people.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing all those different things. It's always fun to watch. But only 2 big movies opening this weekend. I would actually be surprised to see if either one of those will knock it off number 1, but don't say never. I think it will probably keep number 1 for another week, and before it starts to drop off a bit more. I think it probably has some legs, just because the rest of the month is fairly quiet as far as direct competition to that type of movie.
And the movie is leading into horror movie season, so it's gonna, even if other stuff come out that might dethrone it, I think it's gonna keep dragging on through October. Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah. Let's talk about some actual just general news right now. The Joker is having some rough times right now. The Rotten Tomatoes has fallen from 85 down to 77. It's gotten a series of negative reviews since it opened at the Toronto International Film Festival. So I'm still wanting to see it.
Yeah,
no doubt about that. But there's definitely lots of holes being, a lot of shade being thrown at it right now.
And this is something that I actually expected, and we've talked about this. I expected a little bit of this because, first of all, the Joker is a character that you take who he fundamentally is and you try and do a backstory. It's complicated. It's complicated because he is such really an evil character, but evil wouldn't be the word you almost use to describe him, because it's most of what he does isn't out of
anarchy.
Yeah, it's not out of trying to be cruel as much as just absolute chaos. And the character is odd in the aspect that there's no rhyme or reason to what he does or why he does it, and he's just a great character, and he's the iconic Batman villain. And they take somebody that has had no real backstory. The most backstory you really ever have from the Joker was in the 80s Batman, when they're Batman. When 89.
Jack Napier.
Yeah. And that was the most you've really ever gotten, and now we have this. And I think that Joaquin Phoenix is a fantastic, great method actor. I think that, I'm going to go see it, obviously. Yeah. I think that he'll probably put a really good performance in as the Joker, but we'll see.
And another issue, I guess, that people are having with the movie is by having the Joker as the main character, he's by default the protagonist.
Yeah.
And so how do you make this character sympathetic and then while also not saying, "Hey kids, go do all this stuff at home."
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is there's a lot of cinema trying to do this with characters. You have people like Deadpool, who iconically was a villain and became your kind of anti-hero type.
At least he's an anti-hero. Joker is not.
Yeah. Joker, though, like, when they were going to do a Sinister Six film, they were talking about doing a Sinister Six film, and like, these people are not good people. Now, there are some of them, like the Lizard, Doctor, he's not a bad guy. He becomes the Lizard, and he does bad things. But
you're thinking Suicide Squad?
No, I'm talking about Marvel.
Oh, you switched to Marvel. Okay, I was like, Joker?
They were talking about doing a Sinister Six movie, Fox.
I got you.
Back in the day. But like, all these villains, they're bad guys. So you're going to create a movie, there can't be any sympathy towards these people. At
least with Suicide Squad, they tried to make some of them
sympathetic. But so there's, some of these characters, there's really stretching to make a movie out of these characters. It's kind of like, I know that Jared Leto signed on, and he's going to be doing Morbius, the Living Vampire. Again, there's lots of vampire movies. Vampires are bad, but you can have these stories where a vampire's kind of a good guy. Morbius is not a good guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you make a movie, like you said, as the main character should be your protagonist, but you don't really want people to be rooting for that kind of a person.
Even like switching genres a bit, gangster movies. Those people, Tony Soprano.
Yeah.
I mean, he is not, by our society standards, a good person at all.
No.
But the movie, or the show, puts him in a sympathetic light. Like, okay, this is true. This is his lifestyle. Let's show how he goes about his day. And that he is the protagonist, because they don't actually, for the most part, make him out to be an outright monster, even though they do show what he's involved in.
Yeah, and they do show the monstrous things he does, but in the end, it's like, well, he's a family man, and you might realize that Tony Soprano is a monster, because he was a monstrous person, but everybody in his life wasn't. He had a wife, he had kids. He made some really bad choices, and deep down, he might be a horrible human being, but he does love his wife. He does love his kids, and at least loves his kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, so there are some redeeming qualities, and you can see how people can relate in a certain situation.
Yeah, you can pick and choose almost on that. And then other mobster movies, Goodfellas, the main character redeems himself by ratting him out by the end.
Yeah.
Even Casino, De Niro's character kind of gets away from all that and kind of retires from that lifestyle.
Where he's just doing numbers and stuff at the end. But and in the end too, these characters, like, through their tales, they talk about what they're doing is inevitably it's criminal. They're like, hey, we were criminals, we were doing bad things.
Same for gangsters. And the gangster movies, tell me if I'm wrong, but basically any of the main gangsters in any of those movies had three main ends: death, prison, or giving it all up.
Yeah, you're giving it all up. Exactly. And so, you
or in Tony's case, everything goes black.
Yeah. And so, on the flip side of that, you have a villain who is still around and has never died and is like just out there doing bad things. And how do you make a movie about that character without having a hero involved?
Without glorifying over the top.
Yeah. I mean, like, if it was a Joker kind of background film, but you still they'd have made that within the confines of a Birds of Prey film, or a Batgirl movie, if they didn't want to do another Batman Joker movie, to where you're getting a lot of backstory, but you still have the hero in the film, and you have that character to balance off of. I mean, like every mobster movie, you still have cops going after the bad guy.
Yeah.
It's like you still have the cops out there, and you realize that, you might even be kind of rooting for the criminal to get away with it.
Because it's fun.
Because it's fun, but in the real world, you don't want bad guys just getting away with all these things. I mean, I actually watched a really great interview with Kevin Costner talking about The Highwaymen, and how the reason he wanted to do that film is because these days he sees all these young people and they all root for the bad guys, and he wanted to do a film where you're rooting for the cops, you're rooting for the good guy, because the bad guys were really bad people.
And a movie that really hit that nail on the head, I thought, was American Gangster with Russell Crowe and Denzel, because they had the glamour, family man, nice, polite, let's put it that way. Denzel Washington, doing the American dream through the crime, and then they have the slacking off dad, divorced, sloppy, gruff Russell Crowe, which actually isn't much of a likable character at the beginning. Yeah. And they transpose that very well, but then they redeem Denzel's character by having him flip and working with the cops after that.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of played on that same thing.
Yeah, and it's very real and things you can relate to while not glorifying this kind of behavior. And that is, in all, it's just one of those things that is complicated when you're making a movie to try and, like you said, it's a fine line you walk, and it makes it very complicated.
An idea for the Joker would be, as I said, have the good guy, and even this might be a different way of doing Batman, and too late for now because they've already made the movie, but yeah, Batman not doing the action stuff. Yeah, Batman doing the detective work, investigating and piecing together who this Joker person is as the counterbalance to the Joker's rise.
Yeah, and you have a lot of, it's really about the Joker, but you have current Joker and then a lot of backstory, like as he discovers clues and you get flashbacks and things and bits and pieces, and that would have been a really good way to possibly do it, and I think may have more success. But again, I haven't seen the movie yet. We'll go and watch it here pretty soon when it comes out, and we'll draw our own conclusion.
I try not to walk into any movie completely sold which way it's going to go.
I'm not surprised that it started off with all this positive hype and now it's kind of like going the other way. I'm just really not surprised at all.
Only got about a month or so. I'm looking forward to it. Jurassic World has released an 8-minute movie that picks up after the end credits scene of Jurassic World 2. It's being premiered on FX. It's basically just kind of like a little teaser, almost not trailer by any means, but because the next Jurassic World 3 is not out until 2021.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 more years, basically. So it's like an 8-minute, just it's kind of like just give you a little extra taste of dinosaurs between now and then. And it shows it shows a world where humans are now having to accept the fact they live alongside dinosaurs in an everyday world, not just on an island somewhere.
Yeah.
So they
in a world where because the Stegosaurus is in your backyard eating your roses.
Pretty much. Because the end of the Jurassic Park, or Jurassic World 2, spoilers, for a movie that's been out a couple of years, shows the Velociraptor on a cliff overlooking a small town.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing is, well, there's a lot of problems with Jurassic World 2, but I'm not getting into that here. Suffice to say, a handful of dinosaurs escape, and all of a sudden the entire world is populated by every type of dinosaur and hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Within a year or two.
Yeah, it's a bit ridiculous. Yeah. As mankind, we can hunt very highly populated animals into extinction, and we're having problems with an animal that's already basically extinct.
Yeah, it's had one shot already.
Yeah. No, I'm not buying it.
I'm curious to see this 8-minute movie because it might be fun, and I do like the Jurassic Park movies because they're fun.
Yeah,
I just had so many issues with that second World movie, but I love the first Jurassic World. Anywho, speaking of remakes, did you ever see the Tank Girl movie from back in the 90s?
I did.
Did you like it?
No,
not at all. How about this? How about they remade it with Margot Robbie? Would that help you at all? That's coming. Maybe, she's a maybe on that, but they are remaking it.
Yeah, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. The original, I mean, like I said,
that just jumped out at me in the headlines. Yeah, I'm like, I got to throw that out there.
Anything, I'll give it a shot. We'll see how it goes.
That was a little cheesy back then. Maybe they can take out Tank Girl. I don't know how they can make that less cheesy.
No, I mean, it could be a lot of fun. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a lot of fun.
That's true.
And that's a campy, cheesy kind of concept.
That really is.
So, I mean, it just depends on how it's filmed.
That's
how
true.
good, how is good as the script? Somebody send me a copy of the script, and I'll tell you what I think the film's going to be like. So.
And also maybe who the director and actor is, and you can really get a good feel.
Yeah, you get a good feel for it. So, but even a great actor with a crappy script, we've talked about this, can't save it.
Right.
Again, I hate going back to like one of my favorite franchises, but Star Wars. Love the movies, right? But sometimes, like, even really good actors, you leave going, that was really not a great acting job, but you can only act so much with the script you're given.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's always that.
All right, well, that's all the news I got for right now. But we'll be back pretty soon with some more videos, and please remember to like and subscribe.